Hi, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of the End of Celts podcast. I hope you're all well who's listening. Delighted again to be joined by my co-host, John. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, Stephen, mate. How you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good. And two show regulars, William and Anthony. How are you both?
All good, man.
Yeah, all good, mate. Glad to be back on.
Great to have you back on and talk all things Celtic. And of course, obviously, what we've seen. I mean, Thursday we record this, and it's been quite a busy day. We've seen today that Lee Griffiths has signed a new one-year extension. And we also seen Celtic make the signing of Ozazi Urogidi, a young Dutch-born centre-back playing his trade for Sheffield Wednesday, and we've signed him for a cross-border compensation fee, probably about 200,000. But again, it fits in the model that Celtic are using, kind of buying young and probably trying to sell them on the future and a profit. But we'll get into all that during the show. What we're going to start with today is the legacy of Peter Lawwell at Celtic. Obviously, this week, I think it was today, actually, guys, wasn't it? That Dominic Mackay took official charge as the chief executive of Celtic. Peter Lawwell's left office, and I suppose it's kind of one of them ones where you're thinking to yourself, what has he done? What's he left behind? Because many fans are of the belief that he meddled too much, he got involved in the first team affairs, and to be honest, that's probably true, especially as we all seen during Brendan Rodgers' time. But in 2003, he was appointed as the financial controller of Celtic, basically to do with all things kind of financial side of things, look after the business. And by all accounts, he did that, Anthony. But latterly, towards the end of his career, he kind of did start meddling in the first team picture, caused a few upsets, we lost transfers and things like that. What's your overall take of Peter Lawwell as a legacy he left behind at Celtic?
I'm just genuinely relieved that it's a feeling of relief similar to what it was like just when there was an announcement confirmed that we had a manager eventually, Stephen. Just an overwhelming sense of it's finally officially, and the Lawwell era is in the history books. And I'm sure, 17 years he's been in the post, he's obviously going to gather lots of opinion. I have to say, and probably, understandably so, most of it has been, overwhelmingly positive and well-wishing and all that sort of thing. And I would reiterate the well-wishing part of it. I hope he, wish him well in whatever he goes on to do. But for me, this has been a departure that is many years too late. There is obviously not really an argument against it. Yes, he kept the club on a sound footing, but really considering how long he'd been in the post and considering the talents that the man is supposedly possesses, that's really root and branch. It's a bit like when Roy Keane gets asked to praise a goalkeeper. Is that not his job to keep the club on a sound financial footing? And you could make a very strong case for perhaps a little bit more action rather than meddling would have seen us on a far stronger financial footing, because we would have been better prepared for the Champions League campaigns, which, let's be honest, I would say since probably even around the Mowbray era, the Neil Lennon era, when it became sort of routine for us to have to qualify for the Champions League rather than just, I think under the years of Gordon, when probably in his first stint and real kind of stint at the club, I think there was only maybe 1 or 2 years where we only had to maybe play a playoff round, so we still had a large part of the summer to prepare for it, for that match. But ever since then, even in the years that we've actually qualified, we have not went into these campaigns anywhere near full strength. There was even the ridiculous year of, although incredible, we actually did manage to qualify, what turned out to be Lenny's final season. We played 3 qualifying rounds that year and actually weakened the team. We sold a player after every round rather than try to strengthen for the playoff round. We were actually selling players and not replacing them with like-for-like quality. Listen, he's a businessman, a hard-nosed businessman, very good financially. I don't have any arguments against that. But when you look at his report card that so many seem to not want to do, they only want to focus on the steady financial footing and all this, and they talk about the record profits. Let's get one thing straight here. It is not Peter Lawwell that got 100 million through the door, through the tills, in the Invincible season. That was the work and results of a manager who he basically undermined from the word go. He then basically, made that man's position untenable and replaced him and with Neil Lennon, and left all the applications, many applications with high quality candidates, forums in the drawer and admitted they didn't even look at them. So, that's supposed to be a guy running the club. That's supposed to be a guy with all the, quote unquote due diligence. He is also, but the biggest mistake or stain on his name for me is his either inability or just generally not wanting to be involved, or unwillingness, shall we say, to try and bring about any kind of modernisation of the SFA. He has allowed the body parts of Rangers Football Club to essentially outdo him in a season of all seasons. For a guy who's supposedly a world-class, some sections of our support would have you believe we should be on our knees, just worshipping this man 24/7. We're so lucky to have him. And yet, with every sporting advantage that you could ever hope to have going into a history-defining season, it was over before we were wishing each other a happy Christmas. So I wish him well. Of course, 17 years, he's obviously going to be one of those people that are spoken about as the years go down. There seem to be plenty of people willing to, point out his good points. So I'll leave that up to them. And I'll just, I'm just glad it's done. And whatever you get up to in the future, Peter, please just do it as far away from Celtic Park as possible.
I think you make great points, because the financial side of things, as you said, that record-breaking season, the £100 million turnover, that wasn't him. That was the work of that team at the time. We had a world-class coach in Brendan Rodgers who managed us through that period, and that brought in the revenue. And coming to yourself, Wyndham, I think Anthony made great points, and it's like you look at as well the failed transfer days. Stephen Fletcher, who goes as far back as that, John McGinn, Ivan Toney more recently, and people say don't dwell on these things, but these three players, yes, it's looking back with hindsight, but they would have improved the Celtic squad dramatically, and especially in the season of all seasons, as Anthony alluded to. Tony, look at the form he had with Brentford, and yes, we don't know if he would reproduce that for us, but you kind of guess he would with the chances Celtic create in the Scottish League anyway. What is your feeling towards him? I don't know. My personal opinion is I can see in terms of the business side of things he's looked after Celtic, but as Anthony alluded to, modernisation of the football club has been kind of left behind, hasn't it?
Yeah, I'm glad you've actually made the points before you've come to me, because I'm not a massive fan of the whole political side of the game. Tony and John they'll talk all day to you about Lowell and that sort of side of things, and I like to concentrate on the football. And in saying that, if you're just taking that perspective, then I feel similar to Tony about him leaving now, because he has meddled. You've made the points about McGinn and Tony. I mean, the list is as long as your arm, especially with the fact that we're talking about how well off we are now financially, and we're probably in the best position we've ever been in the past however many years, and these deals have slipped through our fingers over pennies, is what it seems, if you believe the stories. So, like I said, the footballing side of things, and you're just looking at it from that perspective, it was far too involved. I mean, I know it seems to be the modern way. If you look back to when I was a boy growing up and watching football, and even the 90s and as far back as the 80s, I don't think you would even know you couldn't even name who a chairman was or a chief executive, or like they were just in the background. Now it seems they're much more part of the forefront in modern football, as big as the manager in some cases, and I don't think that's right from a footballing side of things. And for me, he's meddled far too much in that side of things. Yes, we say obviously he's played a big part in the financial aspect, and like I say, we're in a very good position at the moment. But like Tony says, that's his job. That's what he's paid to do. So, I mean, like, we don't get praise every day for doing what we're paid to do. So, I can understand that as well. I think also Tony made great points about the fact about his longevity in the job. I've made no secret of the fact that this side last season I felt was stagnant, and it was like if it's not broken, don't fix it. But you need to bring in fresh fresh people, need to have fresh ideas, and with Don Mackay coming in, it seems like that's the case, and it's very exciting. So yeah, like Tony, all our best wishes, Peter. Thanks, but it's only looking up and looking forward, and excitement back in the place again.
Yeah, I think it'd be great points, and I think you're right when you say John and Anthony. This is their specialised area.
Yeah.
I mean, they love getting stuck into the board. But coming to yourself, John, what's your take on the whole Lowell kind of era? What he's left behind at Celtic? I mean, what was the 17 years in the job? That's too long for anybody, especially in a top position. But where are you coming from in this one?
Yeah, I have to agree with pretty much every point that Anthony made. But no surprise that I do either. Like I said, I've been very critical with Peter over the years. But let me just outline this as well. Yes, we touched on that it's his job and that's what he's paid to do. But some people do their jobs well, some others don't. The fact that he managed to stay in his job for 17 years is testament to the job he did do as a CEO and the financial side of things, because like William alluded to as well, we're as good as we've ever been in terms of our finances, and largely that plays a large part to the job that Lawwell's done behind the scenes, and he should be thanked for that, because it could have been much worse. He's also redeveloped small things, but the redevelopment of the entrance to Celtic Park with the Celtic Way, the Lennoxtown Training Centre, all things that have happened and opened up under his tenure as well. So, I mean, there's certainly some things that I would see as positive. And if you look at the side that he's done as a CEO, the job that he was brought in to do, he's done a fine job. But ultimately, his failings come where he began meddling in the other side of things within the club. Transfers. There's been some good signings coming through the doors that we've benefited greatly from in terms of the time that we've had it with them at the club and the money we've made from them. But there's also been absolute disasters coming through the doors that haven't even so much as featured in the team, or just have been a nightmare for day one. And the McGinn and Tony things as well are obviously signs that his meddling had a negative impact on the club, because there's two particular. We know so much about Tony, but we've seen McGinn and what he's turned into, and we knew what he was capable of. And we all wanted him as fans. We all wanted him, but we've winced and scrimmed over. By comparison, in terms of the finances we've got available, it was nothing. And these kind of decisions are what's hurt his relationship with Celtic fans. I think it's his meddling, and I think most Celtic fans would understand and agree that he's done a great job as a chief executive, in his role as a chief executive, and the financial side of things, as I touched on. But it is ultimately his meddling, his involvement in the transfers, dictating who we're signing, who we're no signing, no batting managers when it was required, and things like that, that's hurt his relationship with Celtic fans. And ultimately, I think that's tarnished his legacy essentially as well, because if he'd have just stuck to what he was supposed to be doing, backed the managers, never left the signings and everything else up to them, got the managers the guys they wanted and things like that, I think he would have left Celtic with far greater applause. But it is what it is. I think that reputation has been somewhat damaged. His relationship with the fans has certainly taken a big hit. And like I said, now that he's gone, I'm looking forward. Mackay seems like he's ready to come in and modernise the club, as we touched on the other day. And I'm excited to see where he takes us. And I'm truly hoping that him shadowing Lowell, it doesn't get it into his head that it's his job to get involved in this side of things either. And he leaves that to the likes of Ange and the scouts and stuff like that to determine the players, and leaves it up to these guys to make these decisions and just back them, give them the guys they want, and then hopefully that relationship works.
Yeah, I mean, you bring me nicely on to my next point in terms of the influence going forward from Peter Lowell. But just before obviously we move on, I mean, there's some issues in terms of the legacy issues, Resolution 12, EBTs, that type of thing. They kind of got swept away by the board at Celtic, and kind of Dominic Mackay inherits that. And he officially took charge today as of today, the 1st of July, and his first day in office in terms of being the actual chief executive, not just a shadow to Peter Lawwell. And coming to yourself, William, like John made a great point. You need to know kind of from now onwards that Peter Lawwell's influence is basically zero. We did hear in the press conference, in the fan one, I think it was, that Peter Lawwell will be staying on the European board, and I don't know if that's representing Celtic. So that kind of could be misconstrued unless that's actually clarified what the kind of position is he's holding there. And then obviously Mackay did say that he's offered to be on the end of a phone if he ever needs a face. Now that is to be expected. Managers do that to each other all the time, so it shouldn't be that different in the chief executive board. But are you worried that Peter Lawwell might still have a kind of influence over Dominic Mackay, or do you think, as we discussed in the last podcast, this is Dominic Mackay's ship now?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think the way Mackay was talking at all the press, every time I've heard Mackay talking anyway, it's all about his ideas and how he wants to move these forward, and I want to do this and that. I think he's fully in control, and I don't think he would. Obviously, he can take advice, and he's saying all the right things, but he obviously needs to say that the transition's been great and Peter's been great, but this. Yeah, you're exactly on with that analogy. This is his ship now, and he's steering it where he's wanting to go. I believe every word he says, and I think it's the right direction we should be going in. He seems like he's young and enthusiastic, and like I said before, these guys, chief executives and whatever other titles all these guys have got, seem to be at the forefront of everything, not just Celtic but football clubs in general are doing with regards to media and all sorts. These guys are the forefront, and Peter Lawwell was not that man. Dom Mackay seems to be a much more friendlier face, much more approachable. So I think he has his own visions, his own ideas, and he's going to implement them the way he wants to. We've seen and heard what he's done with Scottish rugby and how they've come on leaps and bounds. So, and also, change is good. Like I say, you've just said 17 years, that's a massive amount of time. Anybody's going to get stagnant in any sort of position doing that. Change is great. Everything's exciting. Everybody's enthusiastic at the moment. I'm looking forward to the season ahead, and I am looking forward to seeing what the future, how the future unfolds with Mackay at the helm.
Yeah, I mean, it is a bit of optimism now that we can look forward to. And as you said previously, it brings a bit of a fresh excitement around Celtic Park now. But many fans obviously do believe, because Peter Lawwell's still kind of a shareholder in Celtic, he has a large shareholding anyway. And it is concerning, as I said to William there, that he is going to remain on the European board. But again, we don't know if that's for Celtic or for himself. Who would he be representing in that scenario? Is it a concern for yourself that Lawwell might still have an influence at Celtic?
I don't imagine that he would probably have at Celtic, to be honest. Like as Willie touched on, Dom Mackay himself, he is he's a big personality. You don't look at what he's done in at Scottish rugby and obviously and over in Japan as well. He doesn't strike me as the type of person that would, shall we say, suffer, that kind of interference gladly. What I can't believe I'm actually saying this. It's maybe not actually the worst thing in the world that Peter Lawwell is still on the board of UEFA, because that actually was a sort of separate role in itself, even when he was the chief executive at Celtic. So I would like to think that even in that role, of course, he has to be neutral and carry out his duties with a degree of neutrality. But anything that any proposal that can help benefit clubs of the kind of the bracket that we're in the case of regular domestic winners with a massive European history that always seem to be caught up in this never-ending cycle of qualifiers, whilst finish. It'll probably come to the point you finish 5th and 6th in some of the leagues down south, and suddenly you're in a competition called the Champions League. And having the likes of Peter Lawwell there, and perhaps Edwin van der Sar at Ajax, who are of a similar makeup, having the guys in there fighting their corners going forward could probably only be a good thing as well. But with regards to, and as Wally said as well, you would be foolish to think that Dominic Mackay can't pick the phone up and speak to him about this matter or that matter. but I would imagine that when it comes down to the crunch, the final decision will be Dominic Mackay's and Dominic Mackay's alone.
See, you touch on that as well. Sorry, Stephen. See, you touch on this whole like picking up the phone and speaking to. It's not necessarily. It might not necessarily be for advice. It could be in the same situation. What did you do here? And it absolutely went tits up because I want to know what to avoid and do the opposite and not make the same mistakes you did. So it can work both ways rather than like positive feedback. It can also be right. That was negative. So what did we do and how can we handle that situation differently?
I mean, that's a great point. It could also be, is there any great chippies local to Celtic Park in order? That type of thing. You never know. But coming to yourself, John, obviously the guy spoke about it pretty well there, but you did touch upon it in your last kind of statement in terms of letting Mackay do his own thing. Do you think that's the end of Lawwell at Celtic?
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, I really hope that nothing, as I was saying, just to elaborate on it a little bit further, obviously Mackay came in to shadow Lowell for a number of months before he's officially taken over the reins. What I don't want to see Mackay doing is through shadowing him and whatever else it was he was doing during that time, in terms of the advice he was receiving and things like that, is picking up any of his habits or any bad habits and things like that. Like, I believe firmly that Mackay is going to. It's a clean slate, like he says. This is your analogy was great, by the way. It is his ship now. It's a fresh start, and I'm hoping he's going to just do things his own way. But like I says, I want him to stick to the CEO side of things. Leave the football side to the manager, the coaches, the scouts, and things like that. And do what you need to do in terms of the financial side and promoting the club and media and fan media engagement, like he's done. I thought was great, as we said the other day. And modernisation, bringing things up to date, using other things like he touched on as well. I'm hoping that's going to be essentially his remit and that he sticks to it. But I believe that is going to be the case. I can't, like you guys says, I don't suspect he's going to be the type who's going to copy and make the same mistakes that the previous guy made. Like he says, he speaks very assertively and just the way he says things as well. It's all about his ideas and things like that, like William and that said. So yeah, I believe it's Mackay's era now, and everything he does is going to be on him. I don't think it's going to fall back on or come back to Lowell in any way.
I mean, these fan press conferences are definitely his idea. I mean, you couldn't imagine the scenario where Peter Lawwell's walking out with a mic, sitting in a chair, taking questions from the fans. That would never happen.
Absolutely not. No, and this is what we said. Me and Williams, we the three of us spoke about this on the Tuesday podcast, and it was fantastic. And the club has been missing this for years. It'd be interesting just to hear Anthony's take on it as well, though, just while we've got him on. But I thought the fan, the media, the fan engagement with the fan groups was fantastic, and I really genuinely hope it's something that we stick with for a number of years, especially as long as he's going to be there. I'm hoping he takes the fans' concerns on board and gives us that voice, things like that, because we've been screaming for it for a long time.
Yeah, Anthony, what was your take on the fan media press conference?
Yeah, I totally agree. I thought it was an absolutely brilliant idea. I thought beforehand, Postecoglou and Dominic Mackay were answered absolutely brilliant in front of the media, facing the vultures for the first time. I thought they were absolutely fantastic. Really, gave a good account of themselves, and having situations where fans can talk directly to the heads of the table, as it were. I totally agree with John. Can only be a good thing, and I cannot wait till we get our invite through the post as well, because I'll be there with bells on.
Can I just say one more thing in relation to that? And another thing that struck me, and something I forgot to mention in the last one, that even after we'd finished talking about it, I'd wish I'd said. So I'm just going to take the opportunity to know if that's all right. The first conferences we know where Bankier was there, Mackay and Postecoglou was for essentially your big broadcast media, and they obviously got the first sight of them and were first to ask questions. But second was the Celtic fan media, and then third, and this is the most important thing, I think, was your newspapers and your paper media and everything else. And you could tell by the articles that they were churning out at the time, following that they weren't happy about it, and they definitely see it as a threat. But I thought it was fantastic for Mackay to put the fans first, and not come to us last, and then deal with all them first. The fact that they were left to last put the biggest smile on my face, because, as you know, I can't stand them. Like, I hate newspaper media, and they're all, it's just riddled with, I'm not going to go down this road, but you know how strong my feelings are about them, and I don't think, I think they're all absolutely criminal, and they've never had a nice word to say about this club for years. And I think that Mackay's option to give the fan media, Celtic fan media, a voice before the sort of print media was fantastic, and it's another thing I'm hoping that it sticks to going forward.
We did see the next day the backlash from certain columnists in newspapers in regards to kind of pinpointing the Celtic fan media as embarrassing, all because they felt threatened. And just to move on slightly, the last point that Dominic Mackay anyway, during that the fan media one anyway, the press conference, there was some questions and stuff he did dance around, and he didn't really give a straight answer. But one thing he did say, which is truthful, he admitted that there was kind of no defined set structure in the way Celtic are moving forward. And he's looking at likes of Brentford, Salzburg, Ajax for the kind of examples, and he's actively ringing these clubs to see what they're doing, to see if it can be implemented in Celtic. And I'll come to yourself, Anthony, first for this one. I know at this stage it is worrying for me, from my personal point of view, that I kind of Celtic have no strategy at the moment moving forward in terms of his director of football, technical director, and we did see that the chief sports science guy, Lee Naylor, left. He's joined Leipzig. So is it concerning for you? Or are you kind of refreshed by Mackay's honesty during that?
I wouldn't say I'm in full-blown panic mode about it, Stephen, but what I would have preferred is, perhaps in the months leading up to this. I know we've obviously had the problems with, the Eddie Howe situation that's maybe thrown us off course a bit, but I don't have any issue with taking the time to implement whatever strategy it is we choose to adopt. I probably would have just liked by now for us to have decided on which one that will be. Like you say, there's all different models, and there's more than one ways to skin a cat or run a football club. So yeah, I probably would like us to be further down the line in that respect. But having said that, I'm sure we'll agree the most, in terms of us fans, the most important position is that of the manager of the first team. And from what I have seen so far, of course, it's not good press conferences that win you titles or win trust or whatever. It's results on the pitch. But in terms of what he's had to face so far, I don't think even those of us who were quite concerned when it was clear this was the road we were going down. I can't fault Ange Postecoglou. He really impressed me. He has impressed me these first few weeks. But yeah, like you say, I take your concerns. I think it would have been nicer for us to be perhaps a little bit further down the road on that matter.
What about yourself, Dylan, in terms of the structure? What way are you taking that? Because for me, as I said, Anthony, I am concerned in terms of it's taking this long, because it's been a long process since Lenny left. We just announced the manager, and we're still seeing heads of positions leaving Celtic Football Club. I'm
not going to get too worried about it. I mean, like I said, he did sort of mention that there wasn't a specific plan in place, but you mentioned it at the start there before you came in, Anthony. He's contacting these. Now let's remember, Mackay's only just came in himself as well as Ange, okay. And yeah, but under Lowell and the previous managers and that what were in, it was stagnant, right? And it was the same thing constantly, year in, year out. It was the same thing. Nothing really seemed to progress in terms of that. And we don't know, obviously, what the inner workings Celtic Football Club are like. But the fact that he's come in and he's mentioned about modernisation, which he's touched on, and I mentioned a couple of these things about like analytics and stuff like that, and he's speaking to these other clubs, and he's obviously got a focus on the youth system and things like that, and he's trying to develop things within Celtic Football Club and modernising that. I think that comes into part of the structure. In terms of the management side of things, as I said the other day as well, these things can take time, and I would rather that Ange and Mackay were bringing in the right people for the long term than rushing things for the sake of it. If they're going to take time to sort of analyse the situation they're in, their surroundings and everything else that comes with that, and then work to get the right people in the door, and that takes time, I would prefer that over just making panic judgments and replacing certain guys, like the sports science thing. It's like, so do you just rush a replacement in for him, or do you make sure you're getting the right guy in who's going to benefit the team and everything else, who works in tandem with the likes of Ange and his system and the way he wants his team playing that can benefit them and everything else. So there's a lot that comes with it, and I suspect these things take time. So I'm not overly concerned myself personally. I'm just hoping that the time that it's taken is going to benefit us greatly in the long term.
Yeah. All you need now is, see, when you watch them films and it says 4 years later, that's how Celtic are at the minute. They appointed ahead of recruitment.
I mean, if it's going to take that's worrying. But I don't think it's going to take that long. But it may take a few months.
Yeah.
But in which case, like I says, these things happen, and it's like, I don't. This might be a shite analogy, and I know you boys have been really good with analogies in recent weeks. But I mean, see if you're like, do you know what? Forget.
Go for it.
I was just going to say, you know, like if you're building something, like let's say it's like one of these model ships or anything like that, something out of Lego, something big, right? It takes time to build it, but when it's done, it's an absolute masterpiece. And I'm sure that when we get the right pieces in for Ange and the back room and everything else, and once other things start moving in terms of development within the club and the modernisation and stuff like that, that we're going to be in the best position we've ever been in, and I think it's going to benefit us greatly for years.
Wow. I mean, your optimism is mad at the minute, John. I like it, to be fair, because I'm used to you being the negative one in terms of the Eddie Howe falling through, but fair enough. But coming to yourself, William, and give me something here, because these guys, I don't know what's going on with them. They're all chilled out at the minute, but do you share any concerns that I'm talking about in terms of the recruitment side of things and the sports science guy leaving? And John is right. It could take months to get them in, and it could be perfect when they're in position because we Postecoglou's men, so to speak. But it is kind of worrying looking around, because we've got the manager in place, and as Anthony rightly said, that's the most important part of the jigsaw puzzle. But come on, there should be followed by kind of signs that they're recruiting in other areas too.
Yeah, I don't know, Stephen. I tend to agree with the boys, to be honest with you. Like we've been saying, don't forget, today's only Mackay's first official full day in charge, and he's obviously had his hands full with, and Tony's quite rightly alluded to the fact that even though it's taken which feels like an eternity, the essential position that we needed filled was the manager, and I think he's had his hands full with that. And with regards to like a plan of action and a strategy, I'm with John. I don't mind him taking his time and gathering information from what's been successful at other massive clubs, because at the end of the day, this isn't a short term thing. This is going to be a 5-year plan or a 10-year plan. The things don't happen overnight. With regards to the staff and stuff, what you're saying, yeah, I'm not massively worried, but it is slightly worrying. It might be the fact, like you're saying, that Ange is in and they're wanting the manager's opinion on who he might be working with at the same time. But I mean, first and foremost, we were needing the manager in, and because we've got him in now, I'm as happy as can be. So you can't bring me down, Stephen.
You're the biggest Postecoglou fanboy there is at the moment, to be honest with you, William.
I've got my pillow with his face coming. It's getting delivered this week. So I can cuddle it at night.
Susan will be happy with that.
He's gone right in the middle too.
No, I do share your positivity. I've just come across there is other areas in regards to what needs kind of people in, right as of now, and kind of recruitment and stuff. But moving on to pre-season, that's something that's coming thick and fast, because that's going to lead on to the Champions League game against Midtjylland. And the first game we're going to have in the pre-season programme is Sheffield Wednesday. And funny enough, we've signed 2 players from them. Liam Shaw, which was done 2 or 3 weeks ago, confirmed anyway by Celtic. And then Osaze Arogide, we signed today. Yes, William, banged it out the first try. Love it. We signed him today on a 4-year contract. That's kind of Postecoglou's first signing in regards to player-wise. He's come in for a cross-border compensation fee, probably around 200, 300k. And it seems to be, John, that it's fitting the model of buying them young, developing them, and trying to get a fee. Do you think that's the type of model that Celtic are going back to? Now, by all accounts, the guy, he does look like he's a monster. Like, he looks like a tank, to be fair, and he plays centre back, and I think he can play right back as well. So, are you excited by him? What's your vibe from it?
I mean, I don't know personally. I've heard his name, but I don't know too much about him. What I will say is I have sort of read through various different outlets that we weren't the only club watching him. There was other massive clubs, Sporting Lisbon, Benfica, and other clubs like that were keeping tabs on him, and we've managed to get him in. Now, you could say that it's one of these sort of sign them young, develop them, sell them on for profit. We've spoken about this at length as well, about the kind of club that Celtic are, and we don't like it. We don't want to be seen as a selling club, but we need to be realistic as well, because it was the same when we got the likes of Van Dijk in. We knew as soon as we saw Van Dijk starting to play, he wasn't going to stay with us because bigger clubs were going to be coming after him. We saw the same with Musa and everybody else. And Musa's another perfect example of this guy, and I'm hoping that this boy is in a similar vein. If you remember, we got Musa for, essentially it was a free transfer and it was a cross-border fee, was all we paid for him. He came in straight into the first team and became a cult hero, essentially, at Celtic, and still to this day, Celtic fans love him, despite the fact that he's moved on. But he done a job for us the time he was here. We loved him, but it was a similar situation. So I don't think this boy's age and the fact we've got him on a free for this club necessarily means that he's a development sort of project. But I'm hoping, like you mentioned, he looks a player. He's a big guy. He's solid, and the fact that he was being scouted by massive clubs as well shows obviously there's more than just us see potential in him. So I'm kind of hoping that it turns out to be fruitful for us. And if that means in a couple of years' time that we sell him on and we make a bit of money for him, then so be it. Again, we need to be realistic about the nature of things, especially in the modern market. But like I said, as long as he gives everything 100% in that jersey when he steps on the park, I'll be happy.
Yeah, I mean, I have tried to look at certain videos of him playing, and again, YouTube makes a player look world class no matter what it is. He seems quick, he seems strong, Anthony. He seems like he likes a tackle. And in his Celtic interview for the TV channel, he did say that for the Celtic fans, they expect crunching tackles, someone who's going to give the all for the shirt. And again, that's what we want. And Postecoglou alluded to the fact that the reason he wanted to sign the fact that this guy was because he was excited to join Celtic. He actually wanted to come to the club. So is that a good sign for yourself going forward in terms of the signing?
Yeah, I think it is. He's obviously, like you say, he's excited and wants to be here. And Ange has made it quite clear that he will only deal with players or keep players at the club or sign players that are fully committed and that want to be here. And the more committed players you have out on the pitch, and the fact that, touching wood, that we get as many fans, hopefully capacity, back in the stadium as soon as possible around the start of the season, it means that for me things are only going in the right direction. I can't pretend to know too much about him, like similar to what John says. I don't follow. I watch some of the Premier League if I've got some spare time, but the lower leagues in England I tend not to watch too much unless I'm waiting on a particular one to win me some money off my Sky bet. But but by all accounts, our record of signing guys from those leagues is pretty impressive when you actually look at it. So he's got one of the best chances in football you could ever hope to have. A Celtic team that needs to prove a lot to its supporters this season. If he does the business this year, he'll go down in history.
Yeah, I mean, another thing as well for people to check out who's listening, he does have a YouTube channel, his own personal YouTube channel, where he does workouts, and it shows the kind of day-to-day life of a footballer, which is quite interesting. But coming to yourself, William, that's Liam Shaw and Arogide saying nice. I keep forgetting sometimes, but I'm getting there. That's them both signed from Sheffield Wednesday, and our first pre-season game, fully enough, is against them. It could be quite a tasty game by all accounts. But what's your opinion on this? Do you think that it's just the way, as the guys alluded to, that Celtic kind of have to operate now in terms of transfer fees going forward? We did do that model quite recently, but kind of scrapped it, especially last season, banned the players at like 5 million and stuff. Are you happy enough going down this road again?
Yes and no. We're far too positive today. I'm going to bring it down a bit, I think. See, to be honest with you, when I seen the news today that he signed, I was massively underwhelmed. I never heard of him before today.
What's his name, Will?
Let's just pass that. Origidi.
Hey.
I'm actually so disappointed because I was expecting you to come and just fumble it all night, but you've actually nailed it every time. I'm actually really, really disheartened. Anyway.
I'm actually taking full credit for that as well.
Yeah, so you should, Jared.
Yeah.
Aye, so looking into it, I mean, he's only 19, 20 years old, and by looking into, he's made 20 appearances, albeit I know Sheffield Wednesday are in a bit of predicament financially, and their hands been dealt. They had to play these types of guys, but I mean that's obviously valuable experience in a massive league. Let's not get away from it. The Championship's one of the English Championship's one of the biggest leagues in world football. The money they generates massive amounts. So that's all positive. And yeah, it's a young prospect, and he could have a sell-on fee. But I just always think to the players, like just off the top of my head in recent memory, like Benyu, the midfielder we got, he was meant to be the next big thing. He went on loan to several clubs, and I think we've sold him now. The likes of Luca Connell, who's came in, I'm hoping he gets a run on his side. But again, he's another one this is the future, and we can sell them on. We've not seen a peep of them. Again, you keep hearing about these great prospects, and we've all had debates about it over and over again. Great prospects, but they can't be that great if they're not getting a run on the side. So I'm hoping to God that it's going to be a positive signing, and he's going to hit the ground running. But my first thought was, well, we've got another Benyu, we've got another Luca Connell, or I mean, there's hundreds you can go by. Obviously, they're not all going to work out. Every signing's definitely not going to work out. So, but my first instinct was I was a bit underwhelmed, and also the fact that it's obviously been happening behind the scenes before Postecoglou's came in. I think his statement himself said that the Celtic have been looking at him, and I got to have a chat with him. So I think it's fair to say that it's not Angie's signing, along with Shaw. So with all that added thrown into the mix, it kind of, like I said, underwhelming's the overriding sense, the overriding feeling I get. Saying that, we're playing Sheffield Wednesday, so we'll probably get to see our first 11 for next year, because it seems like we're just signing the whole squad. So hopefully he comes in and does the job, but I'm hoping we're going to, like, I would be more excited with the Croatian boy that we're in for. He seems to be a good pedigree, and he's playing at a decent level. So hopefully we push on, we spend a bit more money. But again, saying that, we spent a bit of money last year, and we all know how that worked out. So nothing's a guarantee, and I think that is the model we're going to. Like Mackay's always talking about, looking at the likes of even Dortmund and Ajax and co, and that's exactly what they do. They bring these young players in, and Dortmund do it to an extreme. They pay massive amounts of money for like global wonder kids and sell them on for even more massive amounts of money. But these guys seem to be that, like, the Dortmund scouting system is just second to none. It must be one of the up there with some of the best clubs in the world. The players they've churned out are incredible. And then that goes back to, Stephen, what you're talking about with our view and what we're going to do in the future. And it seems like we've not even, our scouting departments, we've got next to nobody left, have we? The head is they're all, like, everybody's gone. So, underwhelmed, but let's see what happens.
I think, to be fair, William, I come to yourself, John, for this one, because you made a great point, and I was going to actually say that before we moved on. Postecoglou did say in his statement, obviously signing the player, that Celtic have been tracking him for a while, which indicates to me that this isn't Postecoglou's signing. And also, I don't know if you guys picked up on as well, in the TV interview, Celtic TV interview, I think it was Jerry McCulloch said to him, how did you feel when Postecoglou met you in London? So this has been going on way back since he attended the England and Scotland game with Dominic Mackay. But William is right. Does that concern you, that the fact that it seems like they're working off old lists? And this is what we alluded to last week, but even more so now, because we may be reading too far into it. But again, it's a valid thing that William said.
I mean, no, it absolutely is. It's certainly a valid point. But I mean, if you've got scouts in the club still, and they've been tracking players, and you want to take information for them as soon as you come in, I've absolutely no doubt that Andrew spoke to these guys and then says, right, so what's been happening, and they've had a discussion about it, and then they've said, well, there's a certain amount of players, because I suspect that happens in any club. Ultimately, I still believe Ange had a final say in whether or not we're bringing them in, which is why Ange wanted to speak to him directly. Ange has obviously had a conversation with him. Ange alluded to as well in previous interviews and that he's had and stuff like that. If these players aren't cutting it and they're not buying into the way he wants to play football, they're not going to feature. So if he's met with Ange and he's had this discussion with him, I think Ange is, in essence, he's obviously been presented with a guy and then says, well, here's one guy we've been tracking for some time. And then Ange has been like, right, well, I want to talk to him. I want to have a word with him, see what he's like. And Ange, he's bought into what Ange is saying, because I think Ange ultimately made the final. He had the final word. I don't think we signed him behind Ange's back now that he's in the door. Especially when you're hearing that he did meet him. So no, it doesn't. I'm not going to spend too much time dwelling on stuff like that, because I think ultimately anybody we bring in for this point forth is on Ange's say so. Regardless of whether it's an old list or no, but Ange is obviously going to want to. He's only just got in here, and he comes from a different market altogether. So he's going to want to take the knowledge for some of the scouts and everything else, and players that we've been obviously tracking and everything. And why wouldn't you? I mean, it seems like a logical thing to do, especially when we're in the position that we're in. So, nah, I'm not going to look too deep into it.
See, just to add to that as well, like there's, I touched on that on Tuesday as well. Like these guys aren't necessarily going to walk straight into the team, and the turnover in our squad this year is going to be fairly big. And I felt like we were, well, it was glaringly obvious last year that we were very short in certain areas. So, like I say, I touched on it on Tuesday. We do need more depth in the squad. So, like, I don't mind these signings coming in, and with youth on their side and their prospects, then like it's just, I could totally understand. And see, for the fee as well, the fee's peanuts. So from that sense, then it can be a no-brainer. I don't know why it was underwhelming. Maybe just because there's been so much excitement with Ange and stuff coming in, and just expecting to have some sort of name that I know, a player that I've heard of.
I mean, you can also allude to the fact that Messi's out of contract at Barcelona.
Maybe.
No, but coming to yourself, Anthony, here, obviously the guys are going over the fact that it could be. I mean, John's right. He wasn't saying behind Ange's back. That's a definite, because Postecoglou went to meet the fella, and he must have made a good impression. And obviously, he's seen the videos that are the databases that the scouts have. So, are you concerned at the fact that maybe this wasn't a kind of first pick Postecoglou signing off his sheet that he made? I know we keep talking about sheets, but it's just obviously references scouting and stuff. But are you concerned with that fact, or are you just kind of like, as William said there, kind of beefing up the squad a bit as well?
Yeah, I think it's just another body in the door, and as John says, although it's maybe someone we've been tracking for a while, the fact that they met up down in London suggests to me that this signing's been made with the full backing of the manager. So yeah, I'm totally reiterate, and I'll second what John's views on that.
Yeah, no, that's grand. So it is, and the fact as well, what we're seeing more and more so, especially with Celtic producing like clips of training, like Postecoglou is putting a stamp on the team. We've seen Liam Shaw come out and say the training's been hard, it's been fast, it's been intense, and that's what you kind of want to hear. And it brings me on to the fact that today we did see that Lee Griffiths signed a new 1-year extension. The Celtic have took up the option to keep Lee Griffiths, among much speculation yesterday, which was Wednesday, that he deleted all notion in terms of following Celtic on whether it be Twitter or Instagram profiles. So coming to yourself, John, first for this, the Lee Griffiths thing. Now, I've been very clear. I did not think he deserved it. I still don't think he deserved it. I think for me, it's papering up the cracks. And as William said, it's another body we get to keep. But again, it's a body we get to keep on God knows how much he's getting a week in terms of his wage and if he's going to be fit. I mean, by all accounts, we'll be sitting here in January again with all you guys on saying, why is the Griffiths not fit and available? It's kind of the risk here, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, anything's a risk, really. If you think about it, I mean, nothing's for certain. Do I think he deserved another chance? Absolutely. We know how good he is when he's on his game, and like we've constantly said it. Tell me a better natural finisher in Scotland when they're on form. The guy is capable of scoring barrelloads of goals, right? And that in itself is something to remember. If and he's obviously had conversations with Ange, if he's buying into this and Ange has got him training a certain way, he's going to get himself up to fitness. Ange isn't going to stand for any carry on. And we'll see over the course of the season if he features. If we start seeing him playing games and he's featuring in these games, we know he's pulling his weight. We know he's putting the work in on the training ground. If no, then again we can continue to sort of just sort of assume that he's no doing what he needs to do. In regards to, we don't know how much, you mentioned there how much he's on. We actually, what it looks like to me is we had the option to trigger another year extension, which ultimately would mean he was on the same wage. We actually, it seems like we let that run out, and then he's been re-signed on another year deal, a 12-month deal, which could ultimately mean that he's maybe taking a cut in his pay.
That's a great point, mate. That's a great point.
That's a great point, to be fair.
And if that is the case, then it shows how much Lee at Griffiths is willing to put the time and work in. He's betting on himself to put the work in, and he's putting faith in Ange, and Ange is putting faith in him. And he's obviously, I can't imagine that Griffiths didn't have opportunity to go elsewhere. I suspect other clubs in Scotland were probably looking at him and were ready to pounce. But the fact he's bought into this, and like I says, he could have done it on a new year deal, cut price, and he's wanted to prove himself and prove to the club and prove to the fans that everything that's been said about him has been shite, which, if you believe what's been said, could well be. So I think it remains to be seen, but I think he deserves a chance, absolutely. And we're going to benefit it more. I would much rather see them at Celtic scoring goals than playing for the likes of Hibs or Aberdeen and then rattling them in against us. And this thing, by the way, I just want to say this as well. See about the stuff about he removed Celtic for all his Instagram and things like that. He never had Celtic on there. He's never had it. So that is, again, just shows the power of social media. Somebody says something about, oh, he's done this. People go and check, see that it's no there, and then saying, oh, he's followed Celtic again. It's like he never unfollowed Celtic. He never had Celtic on his Instagram and things like that. So it's all shite. And people need to stop believing everything they fucking read.
I think it was more so, mate, the fact that he's been posting videos at Celtic's training ground with full Celtic gear on for the last 4 or 5 weeks. And then this post was in a random gym. I don't know if it's his own gym, and it was only Scotland gear he was wearing. I think that, and the timing of it just raised a few eyebrows.
I think somebody, like you says, he could have a home gym. He could be working with other people. We know he's been back in training earlier than most. Like you said, he's been posting a lot of stuff, training in the Celtic gear, but there's nothing wrong with him posting stuff in his own gear, in his own gym, or working with other people, because it shows A, his commitment to getting himself fit, and B, it's gave somebody's obviously fabricated this story. It's gave them the opportunity to jump on it and then just fabricate this absolute pish, and then people have bought into it, and then they're starting to say, oh, if he doesn't want to be, like, it just creates mere discontent within the club, and I hate that, because you're creating something out of nothing, and certain fans are going to believe it and they're going to turn against them for it. They're like, oh, you've removed Celtic for your profile, you don't deserve to be here, you're not wearing Celtic colours, you don't deserve to be, because people are that fickle, let's be honest, and people are going to be that gullible and they'll believe everything they read. But I can assure you, and I know this for a fact because in recent months I've been checking Lee's Instagram and his training videos and that, he's never had Celtic on his profile, that he played for Celtic or anything like that. It's his own social media thing. It's always just been his, and he's never unfollowed Celtic either. That's nonsense.
Yeah.
So just be careful what you believe.
You made some great points. I mean, I bought that hook, line, and sinker. Like, I really did, because I thought that was the end of Lee Griffiths to Celtic, and not in a harsh way. I just thought maybe he's went, this is enough for me, and he's going to find a new club. But coming to yourself, Anthony, in actual fact, the first signing of the Postecoglou era, as John alluded to, was Lee Griffiths. Do you think he deserved to be re-signed at Celtic?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I obviously was listening to you guys last week, and so I take all the arguments against him being given the contract, because I think we were all sort of all the things that annoys me, has annoyed me recently with regards to Neil Lennon's outbursts on the Euros podcast. One of the things that I do agree, I shared his fury with, was Griffiths' conditioning coming back for lockdown. You can totally understand why he would be furious. That being said, there's a lot of questions that have been asked about Lee Griffiths over the years. One of the questions that's never been asked is he got the ability to score goals, because his goal scoring record speaks for itself. And as John says, I'd rather have him in green and white hoops scoring goals rather than in the colours of any other team in Scotland. And I think Ross nailed it last week when he says it's the circumstances that we're in at this point. We're fast approaching, essentially pre-season's already started. The boys that aren't on international duty are already in training. We've got games coming up. We've got the qualifiers on the horizon. The start of the new season itself's only 4 Saturdays away. And there's going to, in that time, there's going to be lots of if, buts, whens, and maybes with regards to comings and goings with players. Obviously, in that department, Edward's the big one. What will happen one way or the other? So having a focused, fit, and hungry Lee Griffiths in your squad, trying to build some momentum in a very crucial point of the season, I can completely understand why Celtic were keen to keep him for another year. As I say, it might well be that this time next year it does come to its natural end, but as John alluded to as well, he's no doubt will have spoken to the new manager. Maybe he's buying into this vision, and if you can get the wee man to screw the nut and do his talking on the pitch, then it's only going to be us that reaps the rewards.
I really have no idea what's happened to us as a podcast. We are far too positive to think about everything. The Postecoglou effect is happening to us all. But coming to yourself, William, I mean, do you back up what the guys say here about Lee Griffiths?
100% positivity all the way. I am and always have been the biggest Lee Griffiths fan. I know there was a bit of it kind of torn supporters when he first signed, but there's no doubt, everybody's in agreement, there's no doubt in his ability. And you've seen it with some of the greatest players in world football. Just sometimes under certain managers, whether it be their style of play, their personalities clash, whatever that may be, they just don't perform. Under Ronnie, he was unplayable, and I think it's because Ronnie put his faith in him, and I think he needs to feel loved in a sense. I understand what's happened over the past few years, and if we did let him go, I would have no arguments. I've said it myself that maybe his time had come, but like Tony was alluding to, Ross and Franny have both said it. They've both commented on guys all these guys that are commenting on our Twitter feeds, which is great, and alluding to the fact that it's the circumstances we're in and the situation we're in. If Eddie goes, we've only got a Yeti really. So for me, it's a no-brainer to get him to sign on for another year, especially if it's. John made a great point that the fact that they've let the contract run out, it seems like it's not the extension, it's maybe more so he's taken a cut. And Franny on the last podcast, I thought, made an excellent point as well with regards to that. If it is the case, they could make it like a performance-based pay and on appearances and goals and whatnot. He is without doubt the best finisher in Scotland on his day, and every time he's been knocked down, the way he has fought back is by showing it on the pitch and doing what he does best. And I really, really believe, I'm so hopeful, and I believe that he's going to get back in this team. Andrew's going to give him one of these big cuddles I keep talking about, and he's just going to he's going to score goals for fun. And I honestly, I can't wait for pre-season to start, because I'm hoping he's coming back and he's looking trim and sharp. And it's going to, if he does, it's going to be like a new signing for us, because he's not shown it the last couple of years, and I honestly just think it's a no-brainer, and I'm really excited to see what he's going to do.
I'll make a prediction now, Willie. Sorry, Stephen, I'll be really quick. I'm going to make a prediction right now. He'll be in Steve Clark's Scotland squad for the September games for the World Cup qualifiers. That's my prediction now.
That's fair enough. If, as you say, like, he is the best finisher in Scotland, and if we're honest here, William, the reason why you're buzzing so much is because of the prediction you made on the last show.
I know. I thought it was done. I thought he was away, and I thought, I've just made a stupid prediction on hundreds of people are listening in, and I've said he's going to be our top goal scorer next year, and he's away because he's wearing a Scotland strip in his own gym. And
it might well could happen, boys. And just to briefly round up the show, just to touch up on like the outgoings and some more rumours about incomings. Come to yourself, Anthony. Here, you mentioned Edward. That's the big carrot at the minute, isn't it? And there's a lot of speculation that the reason this deal to Leicester fell through was the sell-on clause, or a Rodgers tax. Some people have named it. And I don't know how this works. I know John has a gauge on it, but I'll come to yourself anyway first, Anthony. This sell-on clause is 50%. It's either 50% of the profit or 50% of any fee. And there is speculation that Edward is considering running down his contract at Celtic. What scenario would you be happy with? If he's staying on a seat, you want them to be committed, don't you?
Absolutely, yeah. I was under the impression, and John might be able to correct me, I thought it was 40% of any fee, not necessarily a profit. But I'm don't quote me 100% on that, because I'm not.
Anthony, my understanding as well, mate, is you're right. It was 40% any fee,
right.
Which is why people were saying it had to be, considering we paid what we did from 9 million, whatever it was, that in order to recoup a decent profit off him, you're almost giving up half. So you'd have to sell him for decent money, which in this instance isn't going to be the case. So ultimately, I think the Leicester deal, where it was reported, it could potentially meant that would have been at a loss.
Yeah, well, in that case, then it may well be the case that perhaps the club that we don't know. There's not really any club out there that he's got like a natural sort of. You obviously can see him, but you could see him at Leicester. But then again, it's not, him and Brendan weren't exactly bosom buddies. So there's not like 100% that that's where he would go either. With regards to what scenario I'd prefer, what I'm enjoying is more of an umbrella thing, Stephen, not just with the Edward deal, but with IR as well. There's been, and again, I know it's just rumours, but there's been quite strong hints that there has been offers made, or at least, at the very least, serious inquiries being made about these guys, and Celtic are not going to be pushed around on what fee they deem acceptable, which is absolutely the way I want them to act. I accept that these guys may well and probably at this point will go in this window, but it'll be on our terms when we determine it. These guys are still under contract at Celtic, and they've got a duty to do their job whenever they're asked to by the manager. I mean, it could end up being a crazy scenario where we do lose Eddie next year for nothing. But if him and Lee were to, get that forum back, that partnership that they had, that was so fruitful for us, season and a half ago now, they seem to really bring out the best in each other. If you had the two of them flying on forum, it could end up being a really good year at a point where we just assume all these guys are going. So to put, my biggest caveat would say that we absolutely have to keep Callum McGregor at all costs. IR and Edward and and Ryan Christie as well. I think it's not that we're counting down the days to the leave or anything like that, but I think we've came to we've accepted the fact that these guys aren't going to be around much longer. But I think, and I know a lot of people sort of say, "Oh, Callum, he's not the a natural leader or anything like that. But I think that kind of caveat of what makes a natural leader and all that, a lot of those sort of theories have long been quashed. Anyone can be a leader, and not everyone's got all different ways of showing leadership. I think I accept that perhaps it's maybe best for just to try and let him get back into some sort of forum. But if it was up to me, I would give him the captaincy tomorrow. I really do see Callum McGregor as a Celtic captain. I think he speaks well in front of the media. I think he gets the club. He's learned under one of our most successful captains in Scott Brown. Obviously a different type of player. And also, perhaps just as importantly, he's now reaching what I would deem his peak years. So if we can keep McGregor, get the wee man fit up front, and make sure our want-away stars knowing that we hold the cards, I'm like Willie. I've been drinking the Kool-Aid of optimism, man. I cannot wait for this new season.
No, that's a great point. I mean, as you said there, McGregor, he's a player who leads by example on the pitch, not really shouting instructions, but you can look up to him the way he trains, the way he plays, and he never hides. And that's what you need at Celtic, a player who always wants to be on the ball. And granted, Anthony, to be fair, we have to be honest there, last season, I mean, he wasn't great, he wasn't spectacular, but watching him at the Euros there for Scotland, the 2 games he played in, I thought he was fantastic. But coming to yourself, John, here in regards to Edward, and Anthony touched on a few other players, now you have a gauge in this, you know about the sell-on clauses or sell-on percentage anyway. What's the best scenario here for Celtic going forward? Because Leicester one's dead. I think they've signed a striker at £23 million, so I don't think he's going that time soon. So what would you do if you had the cards here?
So if it was me, I'd be assuming that obviously he's had this conversation with Ange. If Ange can get him to buy into it and then play another year, you obviously you potentially risk losing him for absolutely nothing at the end of the season. But you're going to try and drill it into his head that if he could end up at any club he wants, really. Bigger clubs in Leicester could potentially be looking at him if he get back to his best form and he starts scoring the way he did a number of years ago. I myself would personally be having a chat with him and then obviously making him aware of this. Because if he underperforms this season and he's on a free, he could end up a number of places he could end up, but I don't think any of them would appeal to him. But I would even propose try to get him on another deal, and then if he gets back to his best, then you're in a position where you can make considerable profit back off him. And if no, he's guaranteed football for at least another couple of years, and he's putting himself in the shop one day. So he's still a young guy, and it's a no-brainer for me that if he wants to guarantee himself regular football, European football, and sort of putting his name back on everybody's radar, so to speak, then hashing out another deal with him certainly doesn't seem too far-fetched, and it benefits us long-term as well as him. So that's my position on Edward. I mean, as it stands, if we don't do anything about it, we're losing him. It's $9 million down the drain, really, because we've no recouped any of that, and we've no gained nothing off it. Well, other than obviously the years that he's put in, but selling him, as I say, it looked likely that if that Leicester deal went through, we would have been likely at a loss. So, and I mean, it just I think everybody's they're going to have their own opinions on that, but personally, that would be mine personally. I've not heard any other clubs linked with him either, so it's entirely possible we're at least going to hear him for another year. But if that is the case, and Ange can have a word with him, then why not try and just get him on another couple of years and then see what he says. As I say, he's still got a platform, and he's still putting his name in the shop one day, so to speak, if he really wants to move on and play in a bigger league, whatever the case may be. In terms of Aya, again, all paper talk I've not heard anything concrete. You hear names being linked with so and so. He has come out and said apparently that he is looking for a move. Again, this was all prior to Ange coming in and having a conversation with Postecoglou, yeah, and so we don't know what the situation might be. again, he could have a chat with Ange and then decide he'll stay another couple of years. He'll see. Like, we don't know what's happening, and until we actually see it concrete that people have left, I'm optimistic that these guys are going to stay. And I agree with Anthony fully in terms of McGregor. I think he's the man to take us forward in terms of the captaincy. He knows the club and all that, and he leads by example, as you mentioned. So that's where we stand. But as far as I'm concerned, at this current point in time, the guys that we've got in the club at the minute are still going to be here next year. It just really depends on what the conversation is taking place between them and Ange, etc., and what if they've bought into it and if they're willing to sort of continue playing, if that makes sense. Because I feel like these guys have all this wanting to leave and everything else was born of the sort of discontent around the club last season and the way things were being run, because it seemed a bit of a mess, but it looks like it's starting to stabilise. We've got a guy in who's passionate about the club and wants to take it forward. He's got his always in ideas and everything else, so I'm sure that these guys are like what they're hearing, and I'd like to think that they're going to get another go. Yeah,
no, I totally agree. What about yourself, William? Where are you standing on the Edwards situation?
Yeah, similar. I think it all, like John mentioned it there, I think it all comes down to whatever the conversation is between himself and the manager. If he doesn't want to be here, then let him go. I'd be quite happy to see him run out his contract. By the sounds of things, he's in his last year, so we're not going to make much money on him, and the money we do make is going to be punted back to his old club. So if his heart's in it, I'd keep him for a year and maybe let him run his contract out. If not, catch you, Eddie. Thanks for the memories, but if you don't want to be here anymore, I've always said that I don't care how good you are. If you don't want to play for this wonderful club, then away you go. Aye.
No, I mean, it's a hard one, isn't it? Because the contract situation, the sell-on clause, it adds all different factors. And as John said, the maybe most valuable option would be there to get a new contract in and maybe do what they did with Ayer. I know we don't like saying it, but make a promise to him that next summer or the transfer window in the winter time, he could be sold if the right bid comes in. Do you know what I mean?
I think that's what they told Ayer last year, though. That's the problem. He came out and said that himself. They told him last year, we'll let you go at the end of this year. So, I mean, unless you insert like some sort of minimum fee release clause that if a bid comes in, then they've got to go for that. You know, there's plenty of options there. So if that's the route they want to go down, then I can understand that. But my whole view on it is it's only if they want to be here and they're going to buy into Angie's philosophy. And to be fair, from everything you're hearing from Big Angie self, if they're not interested, then he'll be the first one to show them the door. So,
yeah, 100%. I mean, I think you guys made great points. And just briefly, the touch on potential incomings alongside the signing of Origidi today and Liam Shaw. There has been rumours. The latest one, not the Fuscovics, was kind of ladder like last week, and then now it's Aaron Moy. He's linked at a $4 million price tag. He's playing in China for Shanghai, and he's 30 years old. Anthony, would you say that represents a good bit of business? I know Aaron Moy has previous with Postecoglou in the Australian national team, but do you think $4 million for a 30-year-old is a wee bit too much, or would you get on board with that if it was the right time anyway?
Obviously, there's not going to be much of a sort of set. There won't be any resale value for a 30-year-old for that price. But having said that, you know, this is about just getting the right back on the horse as it is, and you know, just trying to build for something a bit longer term. So if this guy was able to come in even for a season or two, get our league title back, get us straight back into the Champions League, then that feel more than repay itself. And if he's trusted by Postecoglou, then yeah, it could end up being, although it's a big outlay, it could end up being a bit of a bargain.
Mm. I know yourself, William, as well. You said that you were excited by the potential of Fuscovic, but again, that rumours went quiet, and again, we haven't seen anything to say that it's still not happening. Maybe there's talk still ongoing, but again, they signed a defender today, so you don't know if Celtic have took the cheap option again. You never really know with Celtic, but Aaron Moy is the latest guy linked, and as Anthony said there, £4 million is a big outlay, but if he comes in and he is trusted by Postecoglou, then that could represent a good bit of business, couldn't it?
I'm not so sure, to be honest with you. It's a lot of money, and I would maybe be more so pushed if it was in a position that we were looking for. But I feel like we're pretty stacked in there. I think well, McGregor and Turnbull, you're putting in the middle of the park and building the whole team around them.
Yeah.
For me, you've got the likes of Sorrow there, Rogic also. I would much prefer we gave the likes of Luke O'Connell game time than spending that amount of money, vast amounts of money on a player at that age. Like Tony said, you're not going to get a sell on. You're not going to make any profits on him. I know a few years back when Brighton came up, he looked the business. I know I'm watching him in the Premier League, and I know in that Championship year they came up, he was fantastic. But I just feel like we're okay in that area. We've still got Christie as well, obviously, and Rogic has got his ties with Big Ange. I'm hoping to see a big season from him. So, like I say, if it was a big striker or a centre half and we're putting that outlay in and he was of age but he had that experience, then I would say, you know what, it's maybe a good shout. But I feel like we're so stacked in that area. I wouldn't say he was any better than like Cham, who we've just let go, or you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So for me, I would try to err away from that. I would look to be spending that money more in areas that we're needing it, like a right back or a centre half.
A great shout, by the way, William, with Luke O'Connell. I really do hope to see more of him in a Celtic shirt.
I really want to see more of him this year.
Yeah, I mean, he by all accounts, he looks like a cracking player. But what about yourself, John? Aramoy, good bit of business? Yes, no? What are you thinking?
I agree with William. I appreciate obviously what Anthony says, and like he says, if he can come in and do a job, then that fee will more than repay for itself. But there is no resale value on him, and etc. And like William said, I agree that it's at one position or area in the team that's actually no needed much strengthening, if at all. We've got talent there, and there's other areas that require to players to be brought in and depth to be added. So, for me, it doesn't. No, Sam, I'm excited by. I'd much prefer the focus to be on somebody else. I've seen that the Rossier deal looks like it's fallen through because I think he's opted to go to Besiktas for on a permanent move as well. The Vuskovic thing, I'm hoping that something comes of that. Again, it looks like their pre-season started and he's kind of just focused on that at the minute from what I'm seeing. But again, it could take time to get that out of the line. Just hoping it's done relatively quickly. And there's a host of other names we've been linked to as well. Some of them seem alright, other ones people have never heard of, and other ones that don't necessarily interest me. But I like they like say like Baldock. I'd like to now that Rossi the deals fell through. Baldock is obviously one I think we should be sort of pursuing and getting that over the line because I think he'll definitely add to that. So yeah, that's my feelings on it.
I think over the next fortnight or so, there's going to be an influx of players coming in.
I'd like to think so.
And like John, you said, you always talked about with the manager situation, every man and their dog's going to be linked to us. And it seems like this whole Australian link just keeps coming back here, Moyes and all the rest of them. Saying that, the boy that's came in today, there was no nothing in the water saying that he was going to be coming in. So, but I think over the next fortnight or so, we're going to see big moves. It seems like Ange and Mackay are working their socks off. So hopefully we see some signings getting made shortly.
Definitely. And in regards to Vuskovic, just the end anyway, he literally scored there for Hadzik Split in their last game. I think it was a penalty he scored. So again, we do hope there is something kind of in that deal. And that brings us to the end of the podcast and what has been really an in-depth show. I've really enjoyed it. And to end it, again, on a light note, we're going to bring back the quiz. And it's going to be the Champions League quiz again. I think it does great. Different questions, different narratives. And that's going to be between William and Anthony. Are you guys ready?
Okay. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, let's do it.
Right. Pretty nice and straightforward to start off. Which team was the first from the UK to win the European Cup?
Celtic.
William, heard you first. You ready for the second one?
Yep.
The Champions League has been won only once by a team from Romania. Can you name them?
Stow Bucharest.
Good shout.
That's one each. Right. Liverpool have won 6 Champions Leagues and Manchester United have won 3. But who are England's third most successful team in the competition
Chelsea.
with 2 titles?
Chelsea.
No.
Nottingham Forest.
Chelsea have got 2.
Well, this must be an old quiz. I'm just going by what they say. Right. So
Aston Villa.
I'm giving it to Anthony. So he's got it.
Okay.
Who is the Champions League top goal scorer of all time?
Cristiano Ronaldo.
3-1 Anthony. He brings it home. Well done.
Well done,
And
mate.
to be fair, that question about
To be fair, I feel angry for Willie because he's true. Obviously, Chelsea have now won it twice as well. But then again, they're Chelsea, so we didn't really count them, do we?
I'm just going off the questions and answers that I'm seeing. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah, that's fair enough, man. It's fair enough.
Anthony, bring it up, guys. And I did allude to it there. It was a really in-depth podcast. I enjoyed it. Have you enjoyed this one?
Brilliant,
it's been
mate.
good, mate.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
As always, mate.
Yeah, been good crack. Great to have you on. And to everyone who's listening, until we speak again, stay well and keep safe. Hail, hail.